I'm very, very happy to be here. This is the first time that I have attended this sort of a conference. And when I was speaking to the organizing committee earlier, I said, I think my maximum amount of interaction has been when I have eaten eggs and when I have eaten chicken. But today I've learned so much more. It's been a great learning experience for me. I've been here right from the first session. And, frankly speaking, I had no idea that so much goes behind putting that one daily egg that I have in the morning or the chicken dishes that I occasionally have in the morning. So thanks to all of you for taking care of so many things. That's really nice to see how much detailing and how much technical expertise goes into this. My session today is about marketing. My session is actually, it is a technical subject. I would like to think of it as a technical subject, but nothing as deep as what you guys have been learning since this morning. So I'll go through this presentation. I am available on almost all social media platforms. If there are any questions or in any case I can help you with anything, I'll be available on those platforms after this conference. The reason why we need to talk about marketing very differently than the classic marketing that we have all learned is because the market scenario has changed totally. Today, the kind of mediums that we have been using so far are more or less redundant. There's very little usage of print, television. Anybody who wants to create a new brand has to now learn how to create a brand in the new digitally connected India. I don't think there's anybody here in this room who is not connected to the internet, who does not have a smartphone, and is not connected to this entire ecosystem of the digital world. I just want to start with something very basic, since not all of us are involved with marketing over here. What is marketing after all? And without getting into the technical definitions of the difference between advertising and branding and marketing and sales, I would say marketing is very simply the kind of connections that you create with your end consumer, right? And in a lot of cases, you might not see that end consumer, but still, you as the producer or you as somebody who puts that product out in the market, the kind of connections that you create with your end consumer is what there is to it, and that's all. This is not the only connection that you make with your consumer, right? That is just one very small part of it, the amount of money that he pays for the value that he's getting from your product. We are talking about the other, more deeper connections here. Coming to branding, especially in this product category, again, when I was having a discussion with the organizing committee, this is one category where we still see very limited amount of branding being applied to the products. Most of the eggs that even I buy, I cannot differentiate between, all the eggs and all the people who sell eggs to me. It's highly commoditized. I would mostly just go with whatever is most convenient to me. There is no differentiation at all. So branding is that one story that you create behind your product, your own unique story, which makes you different from any other producer, even though the product might be the same. And that very simply is branding. But the thing is that your brand story should be interesting. It can't be just any story. It can't be just, this is my product. You have to find the interesting aspects of what is that story that I can tell my consumer. What is it that my consumer will find interesting and how I can hook her attention. Also, every interesting story has some emotion in it, right? So if you're selling an egg in the market or if you're selling some chicken in the market, what emotional story can you create behind it? Now, each one of these slides can, I can probably spend a lot of time just going in depth and figuring out what kind of stories can be told. But for this session, I will leave it at that. When you start creating stories around your product, see what emotion can you connect with. See, because unless you create those emotional connections, then nobody bothers about any story, right? There's no connect. There has to be a very clear benefit for the consumer. You might tell the story, my product is great, this is what I do, everything that you've taken care of in the morning, it's all that has been taken care of. But ultimately, that has to translate into some sort of a benefit for the consumer. And your story should be able to tell that benefit very clearly and very concisely. Because as a consumer, that's what I'm interested in. I want to know what's in it for me. And above all, the story, the whole positioning, the whole image that you create around your brand must be based on true facets. This is the age of social media. This is not the time when any advertiser or any marketer can get away with false claims or tall claims which are not backed by facts, right? It's very easy for anybody to go behind and see if what you're saying is correct or not. So in today's day and age, it's extremely important that whatever claims you put out in the market is backed by truth and by facts. Amongst your own ecosystem, you've already seen some successful brands. As a consumer, I know that there are some brands that I am able to differentiate and that I consume on a regular basis, right? So you all know, and I have seen some presentations from the last editions. I know that there have been presentations which have been made by some successful brands like Godrej, Venky's, Prabhat, Suguna. These are the brands that even as a consumer, I am aware of. So you all know the benefits of creating that brand. There have been presentations which have told you that creating a brand will allow you to charge a certain premium if compared to a commoditized product. So today, I want to talk about some very basic and simple foundation steps of how anybody can start to think about creating a brand, right? And we will try to do it very simply without jargonizing it or without making it tough and difficult. Today, it's actually easier to create a brand. The market is very cluttered indeed. However, with the advent of media and with the advent of direct connection that you can build with your consumer, it's actually much easier to create a brand today. And if you ask me, in some ways, it's actually cheaper as well. Because in the earlier times, in the past times, the way to create a brand was to splash advertising. So you needed to have a lot of money to buy media in newspaper, television, outdoors, and do all that. Today, you can start very small. You can start at your own level, create your own social media profiles, and start putting your story out to the consumers, and you will still be able to reach them, right? But first of all, I actually want to take a step back and say that start thinking small and start thinking local. I'm not here to say, not here to talk about scalability and not here to talk about large media campaigns. I'm talking about small geography, very focused target audience. Simply because not only does it allow you to create a focused story, but also in your product category, this is of extreme importance. Because the closer you are to your consumer, it is an understood thing that it will probably take lesser time to transport and it's probably more fresher than coming from very far off, right? It's easier for you to understand your consumer if you're closer, and it seems to me that the kind of catchment area that you have amongst your own locality is probably enough or more than enough to be able to sustain the entire production that you have. There are a whole lot of these food revolutions happening. I don't need to go into detail of all these new, I don't know if they're fads, if they will stay or if they will go away, but at this point of time, a lot of people, a lot of your consumers are reading about them and are knowledgeable about them. You can actually use it to your advantage. Don't think that it is something that's going to hamper your work or your businesses anyway. Whenever there is a trend in any consumer behavior, every manufacturer, every advertiser should learn how to ride that wave. And you can do that as well. It's actually very good. If people are becoming cognizant of local food revolution, you can actually use it to your advantage. This whole, especially on social media, as a consumer, when I go on social media, there's a lot of chitter-chatter about this whole reconnecting with the food that is being produced, knowing what's going behind the food that is coming to your table. Imagine this morning when I walked into this room, I did not know all this, right? As a consumer, I would like to know. I would be able to attach so much more value to that daily egg if I knew that there was so much going behind it, right? And people want to know all that. People want to know where their food is coming from. So again, something that you can make advantage of. Farm fresh, locally grown, all these things can work in your advantage if you create your stories around it. So the first thing that you need to start doing is to start thinking, what is your unique story, right? And it will be different for each person, even though the process might be the same, the product might be the same, but still, it will be something which is different, which differentiates you from everybody else. So you need to think about that. I can give you some pointers. It's very customized, but I can give you some pointers to start with. For example, you could think of what are the features that your product has, right? I have taken some examples where some brands are trying to focus on one particular product feature, like this one, for example. Or this. There was a huge campaign which was done to saying guaranteed double yolks, right? So that's a feature that they thought that it is something which people will put value on. Or simply farm fresh, that whatever eggs you get are fresh and that you can guarantee that freshness in some way. Those were the features. What are the benefits? Benefit is something that happens to me. Feature is something that your product has, right? So you can build your stories around benefits. For example, a lot of these stories that you already know that are on your website, and all of you, I'm sure, are aware of this far more than your consumers. So one of your strategies could be to take these stories out to your consumer. Or something like this. What is the benefit of eating eggs? I know that as a body, there is a unified campaign, but again, for your own brands, this is a peg that you could use. What are the personal values? When I mean personal values, all of you have a farm. What are the personal values that you employ in that farm? What is your own way of working? What is your unique style of working? Do you believe in usage of the kind of ventilation systems, or however it is that it can translate to a consumer benefit? For example, what is the kind of grain that is being fed? Is it antibiotic free? Is it not antibiotic free? And there are many such features that you can find out in your product. Abroad, you have all seen that these kind of pasture-raised products and all this become a unique selling point for a product. And even in urban cities like Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, I know that there's a huge chunk of people who are very aware of these things. So if you try to create a campaign around pasture fresh, there will be lots of people who would be willing to place orders directly with you for something like this and even pay a huge premium for something like that, right? It's never about the price. Marketing and price are two different things. People don't want to buy the cheapest. People actually want to buy the best value that their money can buy. So it's not about buying cheap all the time, right? It's about giving them the value of whatever money that they are putting on the table. You give them this much value, they will give you that much money. Of course, if they have that much money. So don't try to create stories around price, is what I'm trying to say in this slide. When you come to some sites, and I have taken a snapshot of an e-commerce site rather than taking a snapshot of a physical store, because I just wanted to highlight the change of how people are buying now. And you see, when the products are sold like this, there is no differentiation. Nobody knows what brand is this, where is it coming from, what is the story behind it. As a consumer, I have no idea. The only thing that I can go by is the price. So don't get trapped in an environment like this, right? When you don't create a brand and when you don't create stories, the only thing that a consumer can differentiate you upon is price. So stay clear of that trap. On the other hand, I just wanted to show you some other examples that I gleaned through internationally and nationally. This is a farm which also sells egg and poultry like you, and they have put up their story. This is their story. This is how they started the farm. This is what they do in their farm, right? When I read all this, then I say, okay, fine. Maybe they are charging a slightly higher price because of all this. There is a reason.